This is Kanji in Danzanru Jiu-Jitsu. I'm your host, George Arrington. In this part 2 of the Shime series, we're going to be looking at techniques number 6 through 10, plus some other interesting ideas. The Japanese characters that are seen in this video were taken from this scroll that was given by Professor Okazaki to his students once they reached the rank of second-degree black belt. Now this scroll is called the Mokuroku, and the characters look like this, Mokuroku, and that means a catalog. Now the word for scroll itself is not Mokuroku, sometimes that's confused. The Mokuroku means just the catalog or listing of the techniques. The term for a scroll is this. It says makimono. Makimono literally means a wound up thing. So this scroll or wound up thing contains the Mokuroku or catalog. So here's the section that we're dealing with in this series of videos. This is the Shime list of techniques. There are 25 of them. And in this video, we're going to be looking at these 5 techniques. So the first technique we'll look at is Ushirogatame. Ushirogatame, the characters are this. Ushiro means behind or back, in the back of something. And as we saw in the previous video, gatame or katame means to harden or clot. And most often we think of this as being a rear or back hold. And the term hold, katame does not mean hold, it means to harden something, but we could say that it means like to hold fast onto something. So that's often where we get that katame from. Now, in previous videos, I've talked about where the kanji, the Japanese characters, can often be decoded by looking at their pieces. But oftentimes that's not the case. And this is one such kanji, ushiro, which the pieces really don't match what the meaning is. So let's take this character apart and look at it. So the radical for this particular character is this, and that means to loiter, to hang around. This part of the character is similar to the ito that we saw in Shime, meaning a thread. So this is a short thread. And this portion here means to descend, to lower, to descend. So when we put the loiter with the short thread and descend all together, that means behind or in back of. So you see that in this case, it's not meaningful to look at the pieces for this. Before we continue on to the next series of 4 techniques, I want to talk about something here. This is the character Shime, which means to constrict, and oftentimes we talk about this as being a strangle or a choke. So the way this is pronounced is as follows: Shime, Shime, and that means, or that is the way that this character is pronounced. However, sometimes in Japanese you will see it pronounced this way: Jime, Jime. So sometimes you might see something, for instance, one of the techniques that we'll see in the next video, Hadaka Jime, is pronounced that way, Hadaka Jime. Oftentimes it's not pleasing to the Japanese ear to hear it instead Hadaka Shime. So the reason that we use the she or the g simply has to do with the way that it mixes with either the previous character or the following character. Usually the previous sound determines whether you say the she or ji. Now, one other thing about this, when you do a choking technique, and in the Shime list there are a lot of choking techniques or strangling techniques, the question comes up about, is it a blood choke or an air choke? So sometimes when you're doing these neck constriction techniques, you'll cut off the carotid artery flow from the heart to the brain, and this becomes a choke where you constrict the blood flow. Other times you may constrict the windpipe, and then it becomes an air choke. Sometimes in English we say one is a choke and one is a strangle, or vice versa. Personally, that's not the point of this video. What is the point of this video, however, is that sometimes people, instructors, will tell you that a shime is one of these blood versus air chokes, and a jime is the other one. That is absolutely false, and the shime and jime are just linguistic terms or linguistic differences and have nothing to do with biology. So the next technique we'll look at is Nami Juji Shime. And this one printed looks like this. Now Nami means to be lined up, or sometimes it can mean normal. So lined up or normal. Ju, as we saw in a previous video, means 10. And the G here means shaped. So 10 shaped means a cross shape. And again, shime or jime means constriction. Now it's interesting to look at this term nami, and it means to be lined up. If you have some people in a line like this, notice that these two guys here are standing up. Now the word for stand is tachi or tatsu, and so we're going to look at two of those. So each one of these characters is tatsu or tachi, which means to stand. So if we have two standing characters together like this, the evolution of this was they became this. And so that's how the Nami character was formed, by taking two characters for the word to stand and putting them next to each other, as you see. Now one other thing about the term Nami. There is another character that's pronounced Nami, and it looks like this. Now you'll notice that this has the 3 tick marks on the left, which indicate water. We saw that in a previous video. So these 3 tick marks mean water. And in fact, this character, Nami, means a wave. For those who have studied karate, you may know the technique called Nami Ashigeri, which means a wave-shaped or crescent kick. This is that character, the Nami. But more often, the general public would know this character when it's mixed with this character, which is the character for harbor or port, harbor. And together, this is pronounced tsunami or tsunami, and that means a harbor wave. It doesn't mean tidal wave, as is more popular to say it. Tsunami is a harbor wave, and it looks like this. Next, we look at the technique called Yakujuji Jime. The printed form looks like this, And gyaku, and notice it is the key character with a little ya in the middle, and then ku. So gyaku means inverted or reverse. Again, we see ju and ji, meaning ten-shaped or cross-shaped, or simply just cross. And again, the jime, which is constriction. Now, this character of gyaku can be pronounced like that, gyaku, but it can also be pronounced as saka, saka. And later on in another board, we have a technique called sakanuki, which means reverse draw, and it's the same character that's used, but with a different pronunciation than gyaku. Now, one other thing about numbers 7 and 8. Number 7, nami-juji, or normal cross-shape constriction, versus gyaku-juji, inverted cross-shape constriction, is that in one case we do the technique with the palms up and the other one with the palms down, or fingers inside the collar versus fingers versus thumbs inside the collar. In most cases, nami-juji is with the fingers on the inside of the collar, and gyaku-juji is with the thumbs on the inside of the collar. However, you may see some teachers teach that in exactly the reverse way. That's the way that some people do that. Okay, number 9 is ichimonji jime. The printed version looks like this. The first character, ichi, is the character for 1. And if you ever have learned how to count in Japanese, ichi, ni, san, chi, go, and so forth, ichi is the character for 1. Now, mon is the character which means a figure, but it also can mean a literary construction. For instance, a sentence you might call a mon, and this character is seen other places having to do with literary. For instance, there's a scroll in there was a scroll in the Koden Kandojo that had this character that meant basically the literary is equivalent to the martial. But this means figure. It's also the mon that is used when you have a seal or a family crest on your clothing, the mon, the figure. So ichi mon, and then ji we've seen several times before, meaning a shape of. This is the same as in juji or even kanji, the shape. And then finally constriction. So this is in the shape of the figure 1, but all 3 of these characters put together look like this, ichimonji, and when someone reads this in Japanese, they think straight line. So when you learn ichimonji jime, you may think of it as a 1 long and 1 short, meaning one hand deep in the collar and one hand shallow on the lapel, and you think of this as a 1 long, 1 short choke. In reality, what it's saying to us is that it is a straight line strangle or straight line choke or straight line constriction, and that's that long arm that is deep into the collar. You keep that as a straight line. So that's what the ichimonji refers to. Well, the last technique in this video is tsukomi shime or tsukomi jime. The printed form looks like this, and the hiragana for these kanji are as follows. The first one is tsu and then ki, tsuki. But it is not pronounced that way. It's pronounced tsuki, tsuki, almost like Tsuki. It's like ski as in SKI, skiing, like skiing down a mountain, but with a little t sound at the beginning. So it's tsuki, and that means to thrust into something. The second kanji is komi, and we've seen this character before when we looked at suri komi goshi, lifting, pulling, hip throw. And so this means to pull. Komi means to pull. And likewise, we see shime or jime, meaning constriction. Now, tsukomi or tsukikomi is thrust and pull together. So one might think that we are talking about pushing and pulling when we do this technique, and in fact, it's often taught that way, where there's part of the technique where you're pulling on the lapel and pushing on the lapel in opposite directions. But tsukomi, put together like this, does not mean push and pull. It means to penetrate. It means to penetrate, or even to dig into something. So the important part of this tsukomi shime is to dig into the carotid arteries from the front with your hands. Now, another interesting thing about this, and you may have heard me saying alternately tsukikomi or tsukomi, is this idea of a contraction. In language, there are times when we will take two words and shorten them by putting them together and taking off some letters. For instance, in English, we have the words can and not, but we don't always say I cannot go somewhere or I cannot do that. We normally put them together and say can't. I can't go there. I can't do that. So this is a contraction or shortening of two English words, can and not, to become can't. Well, the same thing occurs in Japanese. Here we have tsuki or tsuki and komi. And so rather than saying tsukikomi or tsukikomi, we contract these to become tsukomi. And if you listen, you can hear the noticeable pause where the two K's are. Tsukomi, tsukomi. So that's a contraction of two Japanese words to form this shorter version. Now, the way it is written is as follows. The hiragana say tsu with a little su character next to it, and then komi. Well, this second little tsu character is similar to the apostrophe that's seen in can't. If you look at the word can't, you see this little apostrophe that I've highlighted in yellow, and that indicates that there's something missing there. Likewise, in the Japanese, the second tsu is the indication that there is something missing. By the way, the fact that this is a tsu following another tsu, that's not always the case. There are other cases where you contract two words but still use the tsu. A good example of that is ikkyu, like the first brown belt. Ikkyu is ichi plus q, and in that case it's a chi mixed with a k, and but we actually write two k's, ikkku, for ikkyu. But we would use that same tsu character to indicate that part of the first word is missing. So that's how you would write tsukomi in hiragana. In kanji, it would look like this. We have the character for tsuki, then a little tsu, hiragana, and then komi. And by the way, I've added the mi at the end to emphasize that it's pronounced komi. So here we say tsukomi, knowing that that little tsu character is there. A lot of the terms that we're looking at in this video series can be found in my book, Mokuroku and Kaiden Sho. This is the book where I took the scrolls from the Okazaki Danzanru Jujutsu and translated them in several different forms. I show both the Japanese and the pronunciation and the English for several different scrolls, and also for a diploma that was presented in 1948 called the Kaiden Sho. So I hope you'll check out this book. It's available on Amazon, and it has lots and lots and lots of information. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Hope you got something out of this video, and I thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.